Well, good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming out tonight. I'm Mike Bromerski, and I have the privilege of serving as the superintendent here at Hempfield. And we are really thrilled that you were able to give us some time this evening for us to be able to provide you with some district updates and share with you some progress that we've been making as a district, to talk about some of the goals and things that we've been working on, to look at a little bit about some of our data across the district, academic data, enrollment data, projections of what it will potentially look like in our buildings in the future, and also spend a good amount of time talking about a potential high school renovation and construction project that our school board and administration have been discussing over many months. And so we wanted to bring this to you tonight as an opportunity to share information and also give you an opportunity to listen, think about questions that you have, so that we can begin to generate FAQs and post information on our website to give our community information that you may have or be wanting to know. But this is a very exciting time for our district. There's a lot going on in our districts in such a positive way, but it's also a time for us to look forward to the future and thinking about what education is going to look like for our students in the future, what our programming will look like. It's also an opportunity for us to really look at how do we build and strengthen our facilities to make sure that as a district, we have sustainable buildings and programs that can last generations to come. And it's also a time for us to be able to come together as a community to look at what do we need to do to really serve our students and provide them with a high quality education as we move into the future. So again, thank you for coming tonight. When you came in this morning, or this evening, you were given a card. And over on the far screen here, you either have a card or you chose to use your device. If you have questions throughout the evening, though we hope we'll be able to answer a lot of those questions as we go through the presentation, please feel free to jot those questions down if you feel like we haven't answered them. At a certain point later in the presentation, we'll come around and collect those cards from you. However, if you're choosing to use your device, over on the far side there's a QR code. You can use the camera on your phone. You can access that QR code and it goes to a Google form, and throughout the evening, if you have questions, you can jot them down there. But before we begin, I want to jump into some introductions. I'd like to start by introducing our school board members that are here tonight. When I call your name as a school board member, if you could just please stand so we can acknowledge you. I'll begin with our current school board president, Mr. Mike Donato. Also this evening, so if you just still stay standing and we'll introduce everybody. We have, I'm just kind of got to go around the room, we have Mrs. Judy Brady, Mrs. Megan Eshelman, out here, Mr. Richard Garber, Mrs. Linda Johnston, Mr. Grant Keener, Mr. Charles Maris is down here, and Mr. Justin Wolgemuth is here tonight as well. So I want to thank our board. Our board members volunteer their time, their energy, and their efforts to serve our community, serve our district. On behalf of the district and community, thank you for the service you provide. Thank you. I'd also like to introduce members of our administration and staff that are here tonight. As I shared, I'm Mike Bromerski, superintendent, but tonight we also have both of our assistant superintendents, Dr. Tab Musser and Dr. Doug Dandridge. They're down front, so if you can stand. Our Chief Financial Operations Officer, Mrs. Karen Hall. Our Director of Communications and Community Relations, Mrs. Kelly Burkholder, she's in the back. Our Chief Information Officer, Mike Graham, he's also in the back. Dr. Bill Brossman, our high school principal, is here tonight. Mrs. Kim James, our Director of Buildings and Grounds, is here tonight. I know Mr. Jeremy Paul, our Director of Instructional Technology, is here tonight, though he probably doesn't want me to introduce him. Mr. Randy Ross is also here, works with Mrs. James in Building Grounds and Custodial Maintenance. Where's he at? There he is back there. Just want to acknowledge that he's here. We also have other members of our community who also work here, and I know you are here tonight as part of our maintenance team as well. So I'm not going to call all of you out, but I see you and thank you for coming tonight as well. So thank you to the administration, other staff members that are here tonight as well to support the information we're providing you. Members that we've been working with over many months are also here from different companies and organizations. I'll start with Fidavia, which is a construction management company. They work for us as, in a sense, our eyes and ears on the project, helping us provide different expertise in different areas. Tonight we have two individuals from Fidavia, Mr. Dan Sakala and Ms. Madeline Landis are here tonight. They're here. Our architectural firm that we've been working with, KCBA, we have 3 individuals from their firm here tonight. Mr. Mike Kelly, they are all down front. Mr. Ryan Orr and Mr. Scott Sullivan are here tonight, so thank you for being here. And I don't think I missed anybody. I think that was it. We're good? All right. So as I shared, we have the Q&A card. So as we begin the presentation, if something piques an interest where there is a question or I'd like more information on this, please feel free to jot it down and or use the QR code so that we'll be capturing them. Later on this evening, we will do an FAQ session where we will go through a lot of those questions and try and get as many answers as we can tonight for you. We'll have our board members come up to the stage as well as members of KCBA team and our district administration team is here as well to answer those questions. All right, so I wanted to share this with you. It's part of our new comprehensive plan that'll begin on July 1, but as we move, looking to the future, wanting to make sure that we're creating those safe and engaging learning opportunities for our students and the learning environments in all of our schools. We want our students to be able to be well educated so that whatever pathway they choose, they will be responsible contributors in society. And we want them to excel in whatever path they choose, whether it's going into the workforce, the military, college, et cetera, beyond that. And so one important piece for us is making sure we have the programming and the necessary supports for all of our students. When we look at our vision, our current vision as a district is personal growth, achievement, and success for everyone. And we've spent a lot of time over the last several years focusing on that growth component and looking at how can we grow everyone individually. Moving forward, starting on July 1, we're going to shift that vision with our new comprehensive plan because an important piece is that we are learning together in an effort to shape tomorrow. And as we move into the future, it's what we need to be thinking about is how are we learning together? How are we adapting information that we're learning? How do we best educate our children? How do we gather that information to make sure that we are helping to shape our students as we move forward in the future? So that's what we'll be working towards as a district, and that's what we'll be starting to communicate moving forward. With our comprehensive plan that was recently approved, we have 3 goal areas. The first goal area focuses all around the curriculum, instruction, and assessment work in our district. So while that's aligned to state standards, we want to make sure that it's really rigorous and relevant to the needs of our students, as well as making sure that it's hitting those pathways that they may seek in the future. When we look at reducing barriers, we know that students today face many obstacles that at times when you think back to your schooling, you may or may not have experienced. And so as a district, we're working hard to try and make sure that we can collectively come together and find ways to reduce those barriers, to make learning easier and create that environment where they can excel and they can take those barriers and just push them aside and have the skills necessary and the supports necessary to help them excel in school. And then the final goal is operational excellence. We know that as a district, in all areas, academics, reducing barriers, as well as operational excellence, we have a lot of areas that we can continue to grow in and work to strengthen all of our efforts. But we believe not only do we need to focus on academics, but operations in our district is just as important because the operational side helps support the educational experiences with our students. And so while this may be unique to other districts, and maybe they don't have this necessarily built in their comprehensive plan, I think it's an excellent piece for us as a district to make sure that even though there's a lot that happens behind the scenes, that's all moving in the same effort to work to make sure we're supporting the educational opportunities for our students. So these are the 3 big goal areas. But under that operational excellence is where we're going to spend a lot of time tonight talking about things with our buildings and facilities and what are we doing and what have we been doing strategically to be prepared to start taking care of the work that needs to be done. So let's take a little bit of a look at our district, starting with our teaching staff. Our teaching staff collectively, years in education on average is over 15 years. Working in our district is over 13. When we look at our starting salary based on our new collective bargaining agreement, we're over 86, the average teacher salary is over $86,000, but our average starting salary ranges from $65,000 to $83,000, and that's based on education and experience. Definitely very competitive in the area and across other counties here in Pennsylvania. When you see our staff profile of teachers, support staff, administrators, substitutes, we have over 1,000 employees here at Hempfield. So we're the 2nd largest district here in Lancaster County. When we look at our students on the enrollment side, it's important to note, and you'll see this in a few slides, that when you look at that 7,006 number that's currently up here, if you add all these numbers up together, do not include this number 62. That 62 just denotes for us how many students are in our virtual program, but those students' enrollment numbers are included within the numbers above when you look at the schools. But we wanted to pull that out just to be able to highlight that. So that's an important piece. So as a district, we've been hovering around that 7,000 mark now for a number of years. And you can see this here. We did a look back for the last 10 years. And so going back to 2014-15, we're around 6,700 students. We're in 23-24, the snapshot, the numbers change. We tend to look at an October 1 snapshot number so that we're consistent with all other schools in the state. So you see, we're pretty consistent. We kind of hover on the enrollment side. But over the last 10 years, we've had an additional 218 students, but know that that ebbs and flows over time. And as students at times move out because of family needs and families move, other students then moving in. And so when we look at that, it's important to note that we need to be thinking long term, and do we have the capacity, and do we have the space if we start to see more growth in the area? And so when we look at our students, we start to see some changing demographics for us as a district. Our ratio between male and female students is pretty close to the 50-50, 51 and 48. Our English learners, where English is not their first language, has been pretty consistent around 5% as a district. As a district, the student ethnicities, we're starting to see a shift from the last several years in terms of the percentages. When we look at special education in our district has continued to rise. The varying degrees and needs of our students certainly has changed over the years. But we're up to about 22%, a little bit more than that, of students in our district as a whole. That could mean everything from students who need speech and language support versus a very different type of educational program that we may not be able to provide here, and they may need outside educational placements in another part of the state just based on their needs. When we look at our student demographic when it comes to students who are economically disadvantaged, as a district, we're over 30%. Our percentage of economically disadvantaged students in varying buildings, given that this is an average, truly ranges. We have some buildings that are getting close to the 50% mark, and then buildings that are around the 25% mark. And so when we look at the needs of economic needs across our district, that has been changing over the years, and we're seeing more families with that economic need. When we see the enrollment of our resident students, meaning students who live within our attendance areas, we have about 83% of the students who live right here in Hempfield come to our schools at Hempfield, which is a great number. We have some families who elect to go to private school, and then percentages are greatly small with regards to homeschool, cyber charter school, and private tutor. I did want to draw your attention to career and technology. Here in Lancaster County, we have an outstanding Lancaster Career and Technology Center known as the CTC. For the last several years, we have seen a consistent increase in the number of our students here at the high school who are electing to go to the CTC for the programming that they have. It is an absolutely phenomenal program, and we're proud that we have students who want to go to the CTC and receive that type of education to be able to go right into the workforce and have those skills to be prepared in a lot of the trade areas. So that number continues to rise for us, which I think is a good thing based on student need and actually looking at different pathways for students. Wanted to take a look at a little bit at some of our academic success. And so the chart you see here is based on achievement data, but it's focused on growth. And I want to go back to something I shared a little bit ago in terms of our current vision, which starts with personal growth. As a district, we've emphasized growth primarily on a greater scale. Yes, achievement matters and the percentages matter, but we want to make sure that we're truly growing our students. And so what you see here is what we receive from the state of Pennsylvania, the Department of Education. They look at all of our assessment data, that's the state assessment data, and they set projections based on what they expect students to achieve on a yearly basis. And so what you want to see as a district is, at a minimum, you want to see green. Green means that you've made the growth that the state expected. Anything that's less than green, yellow, or red, it means the students did not achieve or the predicted growth. And then we need to look at and try and figure out what was with that group of students. Was there something we did differently, or do we need to do differently for them moving forward? But if we see things in blue, light blue or dark blue, the light blue comes first and the dark blue, that means that we have significantly exceeded what the state expected of our students. And for what you see as a district that we're really proud of is we see a lot of blue. And when we look back at our student growth over the last several years, we consistently see a lot of blue, which is great because that means that our students are growing at a faster pace than what the state predicted them to be doing. So there are areas for us to still work on because we still believe in that continuous growth, but we are seeing great improvements with regards to students making more and more growth. And some of the areas that I wanted to just highlight, if we look back a few years, we saw some challenges with our 8th grade students not making enough growth, and now you see that we've seen marked improvement with our 8th grade students. In the area of math, when the pandemic hit, a lot of math scores significantly dipped. And we're really excited and pleased to share that our math scores in the district have gotten back, if not are exceeding what they were pre-pandemic, which is absolutely wonderful. There's still areas for us to work on in terms of those math scores, but we definitely feel good about the progress that has been made. And we're seeing continuous progress on our Keystone exams, particularly in math and biology for students. For those of you who are not aware, at the high school level, students have to meet one of multiple pathways, and they get to choose, in a sense, that pathway. And one of the pathways is achieving proficiency on all 3 Keystone exams: literature, biology, and algebra. They take them at varying times throughout their high school career and/or middle school, depending on when they take those courses. But we are seeing great growth, and this is a huge celebration for us as a district. We want to continue to see, yes, green is good, but we like to see the blue. We want to make sure we are growing our students more. So a lot of great celebrations for us as a district. When we look at the district, I talked about enrollment just a little bit ago, and we've seen about 218 students in the last 10 years. Well, we also want to look at what's potentially to come. And so we've done some residential research development working with our student information system company, PowerSchool, where they're looking at and doing a lot of statistical calculations. But in the residential research development that was done, looking at East Hempfield, West Hempfield, Mountville Borough, and East Petersburg Borough, we have the potential in the next 10 years to see 1,331 new dwellings come to Hempfield. And when we look at that, we wanted to break it down for you so you can see based on the elementary school attendance area. We all know that the students will funnel up to the high school, but what might this look like? And when we start to see some of these numbers, 531, 357, those are large numbers. And then we think, okay, what does that mean with regards to potential students for us, in addition to the students that we have? And so one of the things that we look at then is starting to figure out how can we make some potential projections for student enrollment. And so what you have here is a breakdown of all of our elementary schools, middle schools, and high school. And we have the capacity listed here. And the capacity for us, we like to think of it from a standpoint as a functional capacity. How is the building being used based on its educational programming? And so that number has been set, and then we calculate based on the classrooms, the number of students that can be in that classroom, and we start to then see the percent of projected capacity from 0 to 100 or higher. If you see white on the screen, that means in a signal to us that we have space, we have room within our buildings. We've set the target number 85% for us where it will flip to a green. That's just a signal for us to start to say, this is something for us to keep an eye on. We need to look at other residential research. Are we potentially going to see in the future where we may have more and more students coming to a building? As you will see, there's several schools with a green, something to be watchful of. But then we also let the number trip at a yellow when it hits 90%. And that's 90% of the projected capacity. What we don't want to see looking out in the future is red. And as you can see on the screen, we see a lot of red, and this has been consistent over the last several years, primarily with our high school. If you've been attending board meetings or listening to board meetings pre-pandemic, there was a lot of focus around the elementary. And all the projections that were coming in were saying that we were going to potentially have an issue in our elementary schools in terms of capacity. Post-pandemic, we saw a significant shift. And that shift went to the high school, and that has been consistent every year since we've been receiving these projection reports. So as we were looking at these projection reports, we felt it was important to start really starting to study and starting to think about, okay, we have the potential in 2028 to be at 100%, if not more in 2029, of the capacity of the school. And if you have high schoolers now, and Dr. Brosman will be speaking in just a few minutes, the building is crowded. It is a big school, over 2,200 students, but when we start to think about potentially more students in the school, it does start to get, what do we need to do? What do we need to start thinking about? Do we need to look at any expansion, any renovation? And so, as a district, we started looking at not only where do we need to potentially go, but what are the needs within our buildings and facilities. Because currently, while I have what's projected for next year at 98%, our high school, based on October 1 numbers and the projected functional capacity, we're at 96.5%. So for us as a district, we are a large district, and we need to then think about how do we start to financially be able to take care of our buildings and facilities, knowing that there's work to be done. We have a lot of older facilities. We also have newer facilities. And so how do we take care of our older facilities while still maintaining and doing daily and preventative maintenance on our newer facilities so that longer term everything is kept up with? Well, then we look at our budget. And our budget for the 24-25 school year, total expenditures is just a little over $150 million. And so the way this pie chart is broken down, it's based on different categories, looking at instructional program, looking at maintenance, student transportation. We did not break this down based on staff wages. What we did was included staff wages in those particular programs. And in our budget presentations, in which Mrs. Hall gives to our board at our finance committee meetings and board meetings, that's where you'll start to see greater detail in breaking down things, looking at wages, benefits in different areas. But when we look at that, 63% is spent on instructional programming. So that's everything in terms of the materials, anything that would be connected to staff for those programs, et cetera. And when we look at that, the second biggest piece there is maintenance, transportation, and technology services, kind of lumping those together based on their codes. But maintenance is a critical piece, and making sure we're setting dollars aside yearly to take care of our buildings. But the dollars that we need to set aside to take care of on a larger scale is not going to be able to come out of our daily budget. Primarily because when we look at how schools are funded, from the revenue side here on the right, what you see there is over 70%, here it's 71%, of our revenue comes from local revenue. We do get money from the state. We get about 26%. Historically, it's around that 25-26%. And from the federal government, we get a little over 1%, but moving forward, it's actually less because there were some additional ESSER dollars during the COVID years that we were wrapping things up with. So when we look at that and recognizing that a lot of the dollars and the heavy lift comes from our local tax dollars, we start to look at the breakdown of those taxable parcels. And overwhelmingly, it comes from residential. 5% commercial, 1% agricultural, and 3% of exempt. And the law permits taxable exempt properties such as churches, other facilities, hospitals, things like that, that meet certain criteria. All that said, when you look at the 91%, then we need to be very mindful of what does that look like, especially if we need to take care of our buildings, and how do we do that moving forward from the budget standpoint. So strategically, we started looking at, as a district, we have what's known as a capital reserve fund. That allows us to take care of our buildings and our facilities. In 2019, our capital reserve fund was $7 million. For the size of our district, that is not enough money to take care of our facilities. So we began working with the board and strategically starting to look at how do we begin putting dollars aside to begin taking care of the vast needs that we have across our district. And so currently, our capital reserve is at $55 million. You say, okay, how do you do that in that short period of time? a lot of things happened. First and foremost, a lot of strategic conversations took place. Working with our financial advisors, our financial team, working with the board, starting to think about how can we capitalize on what's happening across our country. And what we saw was interest rates were really low. And it was a good opportunity for us as a district to take advantage of the low interest rates to do 2 borrowings of $15 million each. And those borrowings we have to spend within 3 years. So we need a plan. What is that going to look like? And so we built a plan, which we'll get to shortly. And the board also tasked the administration in the 23-24 year of finding $5 million as a starting point from our current budget to say, how do we start to put those dollars into the capital reserve? That was not an easy task, but we were happy to report that we successfully did that and were able to maintain programs. And that $5 million was moved into the capital reserve as well. If we have excess revenue at the end of the year over expenditures, those dollars the board has committed to our capital reserve. The board strategically has started to build in additional millage, and we'll talk about that a little bit later in terms of the taxing authority that they have and setting aside a specific portion of the tax increase yearly and putting those dollars directly into the capital reserve fund. In addition to that, the board made a commitment to transfer any excess funds from the state. We've started to receive some additional funds of how public schools are funded here in Pennsylvania, and there was a commitment by the board to move some of those funds into the capital reserve. So over the last several years, that is how we began to build up our capital reserve with a plan of how we're going to spend those dollars to begin taking care of our facilities and looking to the future. And so what that looks like is it's done through what's known as a feasibility study. Prior to the pandemic, a feasibility study was done in the district, and then the pandemic hit. Things changed significantly after the pandemic with rates and costs of materials and labor. And so a second feasibility study was done. And that feasibility study, looking in comparison to the prior one, helped us prioritize all of the needs in the district. And through that plan, we were able to identify work that needed to be done in all of the buildings, work that was identified as this is absolutely a priority that needs to happen, but also then starting to ask the question, based on the amount of work that needs to be done, what do we need to do, and does it make sense to just address that work in the long term, or does it make sense to address a greater need within the building to ensure that we're strengthening not only educational programming, but our facilities? And so through that process, we have delineated and worked with the board on coming up with 2 paths. Path 1 focuses on basically everything but the high school. Our second path is the high school. And we intentionally split them because the amount of work that was identified through the high school was significant. And given the size and ages of the parts of this building, it made sense because of the scope of that work to keep that on a separate path. And so our approach at this point is running, in a sense, 2 paths parallel with a plan to address everything in path 1 over multiple years, and also then figure out what can we do for our high school given the vast amount of need. And so what we've done is we presented to the board, and the board accepted a 3-year plan and approved everything in year 1. But over the next 3 years, this is the work that will be done across our district. Varying buildings based on needs and ages of the buildings. And so the first one you see, roof replacement and recoating at LMS, LPC, and CMS. Starting with LPC and LMS, those buildings are original. And the roofs need to be replaced. They are well past the life expectancy of the roof. And so we, Mrs. Hall and our financial team worked and secured a grant recently of $1.5 million to help offset some of the cost. We had to have offsetting costs to make sure we could use those dollars in conjunction to begin replacing those roofs. So we're also looking for alternative sources of funding to do this work. But what you see here, the roof replacements, that is beginning, stage and lighting, that is coming, the paging systems in place, fuel tank replacement, that is getting done, the summer paving getting done this summer. When we start to get to upgrading the mechanical, electrical, and plumbing, that starts to get into much greater work in the buildings. So that is coming in subsequent years. And you also start to see things around masonry repairs, as well as looking at our stadium and facilities. And so we'll jump into that a little bit more, because right now, while we hit on some of those highlights, we want to jump in more to the high school right now, because that is a significant need for us as a district, given the size and the scope of the work. And so the board, through the feasibility study, was presented with multiple options to evaluate and consider before any planning, any other work was done. And I'm going to start at the bottom and work my way up to the top. And so the first option was to simply renovate the current building as is. No expansions, no changes, simply doing the roof, all the mechanical, electrical, plumbing, some very minor renovation work that would need to be done. When we got the cost estimates back for that, just to do that alone and not address, again, anything with space, size, any additional flow of the building, safety and security features, et cetera, was $131 million. That was the starting point. I'm going to jump up to the top. One of the options was a brand new high school, because you look at, okay, that's a lot of dollars to invest in a building that is parts of it over 70 years old. And so when we looked at building a new high school, the cost for building a new high school, this was a reduced cost after we started looking at things, is $255 million. That $255 million mark, if we were to borrow the dollars, we don't have enough borrowing capacity as a district to do that, even despite what we have in fund balance. And so then it started to look at what made the most sense financially for us as a district. So we started looking at two options down the middle of the road. One was to build on two small extensions and do some renovations, as well as all of the work that needed to be done with the mechanical engineering and plumbing. That came in at $180 million. The other option that was looked at and presented was basically adding 300,000 square feet. In a sense, in some places across the state, that is a high school in itself, to the existing Buchanan side of the building, and renovate Buchanan, and remove the Franklin side of the building, which is the oldest part of the building. And that came in, at this point, around 211 million ballpark estimates for us to begin with. And so this was presented and discussed over multiple building and grounds public meetings, regular public board meetings. And one of the things that we looked at in working with the board and all of the teams, FDAVIA, KCBA, et cetera, was looking at the options compared to educational outcomes, operational outcomes, construction disruption, and the cost. And while every person individually can kind of go through this and say, I think from an educational standpoint, this makes the most sense, or operationally, this makes the most sense, where we collectively, after a lot of discussion, a lot of debate, and a lot of back and forth, where we collectively landed was on that option of, in a sense, a hybrid option of building new of 300,000 square feet, adding to the Buchanan, and removing the Franklin. Because when we looked at what we thought were the best options for the district long term, for our students long term, and make sure we're financially sustainable and educational stability moving forward, we thought that would be the best option. So some of the things we're going to do tonight to talk through that is I'm going to switch this up a little bit and have Dr. Brossman, our high school principal, come up, because I think it's important for you to hear from his perspective as the building principal why this option is important for the high school. And then we're going to hear from Mr. Maris, board member who is the chair of our Building and Grounds Committee. He's going to share some thoughts as well, and then we'll continue. So, Dr. Brossman?
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, good evening. My name is Bill Brossman. I'm the principal of Hempfield High School. And this is just to give you a little background, this is my 21st year in Hempfield High School. I began my teaching career in this building about 10 years after the last renovation. I have absolutely loved teaching in this building. I've loved coaching in this building, and I love being a leader in this building. That being said, many of you went to school in this building, or your kids did. I need you to be aware, in all that time, nothing has been done to Hempfield High School since I've been here. If you attended Hempfield High School in the 90s or later, our students today sit in the same chairs and at the same tables you sat at in the cafeteria. And in many ways, that's awesome. That's great. We chose really durable materials the last time we renovated, but I just just want you to just wrap your head around that if you went to high school here. Your students today are using the same stuff you did. Our maintenance team has done a phenomenal job keeping the building running, keeping things looking good, okay? But our building is starting to wear out. While everything looks great, the mechanical systems behind the walls are beginning to fail. The pipes are wearing out. We're having more and more leaks. We have heating and cooling issues at times. Occasionally, we have sewage issues. We've just reached that point where it's difficult to get and even to find the parts that we need to keep the building running. So that's just talking about the school kind of from a mechanical vantage point, okay? Talking about some HVAC issues that we have, to continue the mechanical theme here. In our classrooms, if you've been here on a back to school night, or if you were a student here, the air handlers in our rooms, they're loud. If you're a student sitting near that air handler, which is that big metal thing on the counter by the windows, it's difficult to hear. And not just difficult to hear the teacher, but sometimes difficult to hear a classmate that's not very far away. And while those air handlers do their best, we do have difficulty with sometimes our rooms are way too hot, sometimes they're way too cold. We really struggle this time of year and in the fall because the way Hempfield High School is currently heated and cooled is we have a very large plant that's not in this building, it's over by the baseball field, and we need to switch that from either heating to cooling, and that's not something you switch it on one day and switch it off the next. So each fall, our maintenance team makes a decision, hey, when's it done being warm and it's kind of cold enough out that we turn the heat on? And then now here in the spring, we have to make that decision of, hey, when's it done being cold and it's gonna be warm enough, we need to put the AC on. And so, you know, that's a challenge. Also, another HVAC issue that we have at the high school that leads to some problems is our classrooms are climate controlled. They have those loud air handlers in them, but our hallways do not have any climate control whatsoever. There's no HVAC in the hallways. And so that leads to issues because when you have a climate controlled classroom, but the hallways are not climate controlled, you get that differential in the temperature and the humidity, and so it doesn't lend itself well because you start to get the papers curling up everywhere, stuff doesn't stay on the walls get a little condensation on them, and that's just not a good environment for the school or for our mechanicals or for our materials. So that's a little bit about the mechanicals. I also want to talk to you a lot about our educational programming. You know, a lot has changed in education. The way we conduct lessons, our approach to teaching, it's much more collaborative today than it was the last time this building was addressed. Any day that you're in Hempfield High School, if you walk down the hallway, you're going to see lots of students sitting in the hallways. And the reason they're sitting in the hallways is because there's not enough space in the classrooms for the kids to collaborate. Trying to do group work, trying to separate the kids out there, we just don't have enough space. Our classrooms are really set up right now for rows of desks all facing forward for the teacher to lecture to them 80 minutes. And that is not what we want our teachers doing. That's not how the students are learning. That's not the approach we're using. So our space, our furniture, they don't really lend themselves to these more modern approaches to education. And on top of that, as I've mentioned, the rooms are kind of small. We're trying to spread out into the hallways. Unfortunately, many of our classrooms, they don't meet the current state's definition of a classroom. They're just not big enough. So a couple other things I want to mention. You can see up here some computer labs, a science lab. I don't think we have a tech ed lab. But we have all these amazing programs. Our family consumer science program, our technology education program. These programs have grown. Everyone wants to take these classes. I can't offer enough sections of cooking classes to satisfy the demand. We currently put 24 students into an FCS class. which is a good number of students. Like, that's the appropriate number. That's how many kids I want to put in that class. But the space we're putting them in was designed with 4 kitchens for 4 students. The class was designed for 16. We're currently putting in 24. Our teachers are doing a phenomenal job with managing 6 students to a kitchen, but that's not what the space was designed for. So that's just one of many examples that I could point to throughout the building of where we've grown these programs, the kids want to be there, we're trying to get the kids in there, but we just need some more space. Another great example is our metal and wood shops. We can only safely put 20 students in one of those rooms. We'd love to be able to put at least 24 into a space like that to mirror some of our other labs. One other big change that's happened at Hempfield High School since the last renovation is our plethora of open campus options that we now have. So school to work, internship, dual enrollment, and our senior option. We have a lot of students coming and going throughout the day. Students don't show up at 7:30 anymore and stay till that bell at the end of the day. Our upperclassmen, almost a very large percentage of them, take advantage of these open campus options. And so with that coming and going, some of them are taking online dual enrollment courses or even our own online courses. We really lack a good space for them to do that, a space that's kind of collaborative, kind of like an internet cafe kind of stuff. Right now, they do some of that work up in the library, but that's one space that we're lacking for that program, and so many of our kids are taking advantage of those programs. In addition to not really having a space for them, our office setup, right now we have 2 offices. We have the Buchanan office on this side of the building. We have the Franklin office on the other side of the building. The office on the other side of the building is the office for the upperclassmen. But of course, all the upperclassmen park out here at the stadium. So things are at the opposite end, so it's difficult to support them as they're coming and going with all these open campus programs, because many of them end up parking over at the quad. So as you can imagine, let me talk to you about parking for a little bit. Parking is a problem at Hempfield High School. The building is surrounded by various parking lots. It's very confusing to know, well, where do staff park? Where do students park? Where do visitors park? Where do I come? Where do I go? What entrance do I go in? In addition to that, most of our students end up parking across the street at the stadium parking lot or a little further down at the quad parking lot. And all those students in the morning need to cross Kaufman Road and the intersection out here to get to the high school. So you can imagine in the morning, we've got buses running, we've got student drivers on that road, we've got parents trying to drop off kids, community members trying to get to work, and particularly this time of year, Kaufman Road runs east-west. If you're coming from Stony Battery, you're staring right into that sun. So that's not a great setup for students to try to get across that road. Now, currently we have a constable that's out there to try to help make things safe, but that's not an ideal situation. Traffic flow in general, especially around drop-off and pickup, is not, it's not ideal. It's an issue. If you have to come, if you're here waiting for your student at the end of the day, you know how the cars double stack themselves out front. We know this is an issue. And I'm excited for you to see the proposed solutions to parking and traffic issues that KCBA's come up with. So we'll get to those in a little bit. The other item I want to talk to you guys about is flow. Flow in our building. I already mentioned we've got the Buchanan office and the Franklin office, and so that leads to what I call 2-office confusion. So which office do you pick your kid up at? So the Buchanan office down here is for 9th and 10th grade, and the Franklin office is for 11th and 12th grade. So most of you are like, well, that's easy. If I have a 9th grader, I pick them up at the Buchanan office. Right. Unless they're sick and they're at the nurse's office, which is on the Franklin side. So when you show up at the Buchanan office for your sick kid, then we say, oh, I'm sorry, you need to go to the Franklin office, and then you go back in your car and you drive around the school, and then you come in the other side. And then sometimes you get to the other side, and you're like, hi, I'm here to pick up my kid. I was sent from there. Oh, he heard you're over there. Now he went to the other. So that's that 2-office confusion we run into. We have this very large building. It's spread out. and it can be pretty confusing for folks at times, especially new students and visitors. But part of what the problem is we have these really long hallways that don't lead really anywhere. And so what that means is this is the Franklin Gym over here. So if you have a class in the Franklin Gym, you're going to come all the way down this hallway. And then if you have a class after that over here, you're going to come all the way back that same hallway to get over to there. So nothing really circulates, like there's no shortcut across. There's no way to get to those long dead-end hallways. The only thing at the end of that hallway is the PAC, a gym, a stairwell, but it doesn't like circulate back to anything. So that's what I mean by a lack of flow to the building. And so what that results in, because we've got long hallways here and long hallways here, they all meet in the middle, which means when the classes change, all the students meet in the middle. And that means we've got student traffic jams, everyone in the same stairwell, everyone trying to kind of fight against each other. Now the students get pretty good at figuring out, well, I'll go in this stairwell instead or time it differently, but that's definitely a function of our architecture that's an issue with our current design. All right, so one of the last topics I want to talk to you about as far as why we need some changes at the high school is around safety and security. And I need to preface this by saying Hempfield High School is a safe place. Like, we currently have a safe building, students are safe coming here. That being said, there's always room for improvement, right? So when you look, well, first thing I'll say, I already talked about parking. That's a major safety issue with all the kids across the street trying to get across Kaufman and get them into the building. That's a problem. But the other big safety issue I want to highlight for you is just our building envelope. So this is the current high school, and you can see there's space here, there's space here, there's space here. There's all these nooks and crannies to the building that make it really hard to, I will say, secure. Like, a perfect rectangle is a lot easier to secure because you've only got 4 sides to worry about. Not that we're a castle that people are trying to break into, but we do have to monitor these spaces, and it's just a lot harder to monitor when you've got all these nooks and crannies to it. So that's one safety issue. Storage in our building, I've talked about, we have all these amazing programs. Amazing programs come with a lot of stuff. And unfortunately, a lot of our stuff is currently in our hallways. And so, that disrupts the limited flow that we have. It's a bit of a hazard. So that's something else that we could certainly address better in a renovation and new spot. And then the last thing with safety and security I'll touch on is our after school and evening activities. So this place is always hopping. We got a lot going on. Dance theater's coming up, musical before that, all our spring and winter sports, how all that stuff overlaps. And if you've ever come, if you've had the privilege to come to one of our spring musical or dance theater performances, and this house is packed, and we hit intermission, and you want to get to the bathroom out there, you know what that's like. The lobby space isn't there. There's not enough space outside of our large event spaces. So we run into every musical. When we have a large basketball game or something like that, our Buchanan Gym lobby, if you want to get to the bathroom, you got to fight through the line to the concession stand, right? And the other year, unfortunately, there was a terrible accident at Penn Manor. On the court, they had to get people out of the gymnasium. If we had to get everyone out of our gymnasium, there's nowhere for people to go. If you've been in that Buchanan Gym lobby, I think it's about as big as this stage. So we'd be just kicking people outside if we had to do something like that. We need a little bit more space to support our amazing large group venues that we have to help, and that's a community issue and a safety issue. And then the last thing I want to touch on with that is, so we have the PAC here, we have the gym over there, we have the library on the top floor, we have all these large group spaces. They're spread all over the extremities of the building, and they're on different floors. This is a really difficult place to isolate parts of the building for safety and security reasons, to keep people in those large group spaces. Tonight, we've done a pretty good job with the doors down here, but when we have large events, we need a place that's a little bit easier to secure, better laid out design, so that we can keep people in the large group spaces and not in the educational spaces. So I am super excited for the part of the presentation that's coming up here in a little bit, for you to see the proposals, see how we plan to address many of these areas. KCBA has done a phenomenal job working with us, listening to our concerns, incorporating potential solutions of all the issues raised by administration and our teachers, and so I'm excited for you to see it. But before that, I'd like to introduce Mr. Charles Maris, the chair of the Building and Grounds Committee, to talk about why he'd like to see this project. So I'll back you up a slide.
Well, welcome everyone to our forum. I'm going to continue to talk a little bit more about why we think this hybrid high school is a good idea, and then also talk about, can we really afford it? As Mr. Brzemerski has said, we had considerable work done over the past 5 years looking at the condition of the high school and needed improvements. This has included 2 feasibility studies, consultation with multiple architects, engineering firms, and consulting firms. The high school building is the oldest in the district. The Franklin wing is 70 years old. That's old for a school building. As discussed earlier, roofing and mechanical HVAC systems in the high school are at their end of their life and have even exceeded their life expectancy and will require millions of dollars to replace. Making these renovations in an older building is not cost effective and will not last as long compared to new construction. In addition, as was, I think, alluded earlier, I think Dr. Brosman talked about our older classrooms, especially in the Franklin wing, are too small, they have poor lighting, and they're really not suitable for the new type of education where you need more teamwork and collaboration. Where Dr. Brosman talked about the fact that kids need to go out in the hall. That's not good. KCBA, who we've talked about, they developed 3 major options, which I think we've already talked about. But basically, one, either renovating the entire high school. There's actually 4. I'm only talking about 3. The hybrid option, which we talked about a lot, and as well as installing a brand new high school. The administration and board, are recommending the hybrid option. Basically, a brand new high school is too large for the district to afford, as Mr. Brzemerski said earlier. While the renovation is cheaper than the hybrid option, the lifetime of this is considerably less, approximately 25 years versus KCBA is telling us the hybrid option should give us about 75 years. And the renovation does not truly renovate the entire school. So if you look at the costs, and I rounded down $1 million on each one, the renovation would cost us $130 million over 25 years. That would cost the taxpayers $5.2 million per year if you divide it over the lifetime of the project. The hybrid option, while it costs $80 million more at $210 million, if you divide that by 75 years, it's $2.8 million. So almost half. It's effectively costing the district. We really believe this option is the best bang for the buck, and as Dr. Brosman talked, as you see KCBA talk about this option, they really had some innovative ideas, and I think they've helped with this traffic and a lot of different issues that we have with the big, long, older high school. Can Hempfield afford a hybrid high school? Well, one good thing is we have an excellent bond rating, and basically what that means is the bond people that loan us money, they give us a good interest rate, and they like to loan to districts like Hempfield. AA2 is just a rating. It means we're really good. We should be able to borrow money for a big capital project at a low interest rate because of this rating. And basically, the ability to spread out these loan payments over time will basically allow the district to minimize the impact on our taxpayers. In order to secure bonds for a project of this magnitude, the district will need to demonstrate they can afford to make the bond payments. So if you think about, I'm sure many of you have gotten mortgages for your home. you have to demonstrate that you make enough money, you have enough revenue, that you can afford that mortgage payment. It's basically the same idea with the school district. You're doing it with bonds. It's a little different, but you basically have to show that you have enough revenue to be able to afford that additional bond payment to pay for that high school. So in order to generate more revenue, we will need to have a small incremental tax increase over approximately 6 years. After 6 years, these incremental tax increases for the additional debt will go away unless other projects are identified in the future. Although Mr. Bromerski talked about earlier, at this point, the projects in the other schools, we may be able to fund entirely from the capital reserve. However, that could change if projects change or are modified. Bonds for a project like this would go extend as far out as 20 to 25 years. Because of the time value of money and the fact that the district can obtain low-interest bonds, this really is beneficial to the districts. The bond payments down the road will be a lower percentage of the annual budget due to inflation. If you think about it, 15, 20 years from now with inflation, the money, our budget's going to be a lot larger, but that bond payment's going to be the same. So really, sometimes it's good to borrow money. It can actually be a good thing and reduce the impact of a large capital project on the taxpayers. The other thing to point out here is construction costs have typically escalated faster than inflation, especially recently. If we continue to delay this project, this escalation in construction costs will likely cost Hempfield taxpayers much more. Now, these are ballpark numbers and they can change, but typically construction costs have escalated 5% or more annually. So if you use that 5% escalation, delaying the project 5 years would knock the hybrid project up to $268 million, 10 years, $342 million. We really can't afford to delay this project any longer. If we do, implementing the project will cost our community much more down the road. The hybrid high school project will improve education for staff and students, achieve utility and maintenance savings, which we really didn't talk about, and will be an investment for the district's future. Basically, it'll be a win for the students, a win for the staff, and a win for the community. So the answer to the question, can we afford it? Yes, Hempfield could afford a new hybrid high school.
Thank you, Dr. Brossman, Mr. Maris, for sharing your thoughts and perspective. Wanting to share a little bit more, Dr. Brossman talked about kind of the parts of the building. And so what we want to show you here is why the building is, in a sense, the way it is today. So what you see from the original side in 1954, when we have what's known as the Franklin Wing. In the 60s, the Buchanan side was added. The 70s, we started to build on more. And in the 90s, additional renovations were added. And so over time, things were kind of pieced together. And so when Dr. Brossman talks about those little, in a sense, nooks and crannies, this is, when you look back historically, this is why the high school is the way it is today. And so when we look at the needs for the building, if you go back to when I shared the options and talked about that second one, which was two small extensions and just working to renovate the building, that would include renovating here, but not addressing the actual structure, the envelope of the building. And so spending $180 million to do that, when the district will then, several years down the road, have to spend many more $1 million to address this, is part of the other reason why we did not feel that option was a good financial decision long-term and strategically for the district, which is why, in a sense, it moved to that third option. Dr. Brossman shared some of those issues around the building. The roof at this high school, the entire roof, all the way around, needs to be replaced. So down the bottom here, oops, 1 second, you see some of the seams, in a sense, coming apart, which leads to that. We do have a freight elevator that is out of order. It is not being fixed. It's not being replaced. Part partly because of A, parts, but also B, thinking about long term. It's not financially viable to do that at this point. Also, when you look at the evolution of technology in schools over the years, and given the makeup of the building, we have to get creative in how we are running those wires. And so you start to see them being exposed in roof areas in different parts of the high school. Some other pieces, we talk about lighting. Lighting absolutely has evolved over the years. High school, in a lot of schools, especially that are many years old, have the fluorescent lighting. We know today there's better types of lighting for students, for learning. You know, as you're working in your facilities, I'm sure in places you start to see those changes in lighting. The stairwells, again, they need attention. Starting to see cracks in floors. We only included one picture here, but part of our facilities. We want to think about the message we're sending by how our facilities look. They don't absolutely have to be top of the line, but they need to be representative of what we want for our students and our community. You heard a little bit already on classrooms. One of the things that we need to be thinking about as we work through any type of project is how do we start to elevate? How do we elevate those classrooms to get the space that we need? How do we do some of the reconfiguration? What does it look like? You know, Dr. Brossman talked about when the bells ring and the students all merge together. This is the space where they all cross 2,200 students if you're going from one side to the other. Not large enough. We do have a photo of our technology education lab. Phenomenal program, phenomenal for our students. Classes are always full. Wait lists, kids wanting to get into these programs. How do we look at expanding and providing some more options and really reconfiguring our educational programming based on needs of students and looking at the staff we have? Our arts program, we talked about storage. When we have those events, every and any all spaces become available until the show begins. And then that all has to go away somewhere at the end. And so everything gets cluttered together. We talked about some of our athletic areas. We've expanded from a wrestling standpoint. We now have a girls wrestling team, our boys wrestling and girls wrestling team. The facility is it's not large enough. We use this for different PE classes, but again, looking at the programming things, we need to evolve, we need to elevate. Which is why when the board accepted the feasibility study, the next phase of that feasibility study was working to secure proposals for an architectural firm to provide us with options, to really evaluate our buildings, to look at what we have, to look at what's out there, what's possible. And so we put out a request for proposals. We received many applications. A committee of the board, as well as administrators, reviewed and met with different architectural firms, interviewed them, narrowed down that list, went on to site visits to see the work and the scope of the projects that the architectural firms have completed over the years. We were extremely pleased to recommend to the full board KCBA. KCBA's past experiences working with larger facilities, larger school facilities, was outstanding. The work that they've been able to do across the state of Pennsylvania and other places has been top-notch. More importantly, one of the other factors that was really important to us is when we look at anything potentially moving forward, the design, the safety element, and how do we, in a sense, try to stay within the budget, but keeping an eye on safety and security at all times. And as we went through the process, KCBA was by far the team that we wanted to work with and was recommended. And so tonight, we're going to turn this over now to Mr. Mike Kelly, one of the principal architects of KCBA for this particular project, as well as Mr. Ryan Orr, who will come up shortly, so that you can hear from them, from their perspective, work that has been done to date, and then start to show you some things that have occurred as a result of all of this hard work. I do want to just publicly thank the KCBA team. You've been absolutely phenomenal to work with, and we're very grateful for the time and attention you have shown us. And every interaction we've had, you have made us feel like we are your #1 client, and you are working to serve us and our community, so thank you. So, Mr. Mike Kelly.
Well, thank you very much. And one of the first things I'll tell you is the most successful projects that we work on come from a collaborative effort. It's not just us. We know how to build a school, but we don't know how to build your school. We don't know what's best for Hempfield. And that really comes from a long collaborative effort over several months now. I think we began, over the summer, last summer, really learning and hearing a lot about the challenges that you heard tonight that Dr. Brosman had talked about, and finding a solution that works best for here. What you're going to see shortly is very unique to Hempfield High School, as it should be. This is trying to meet the needs of a lot of administrators, a lot of teachers that we've met with. You've heard a lot about some of the really celebrated programs you have here. Our goal was to make sure that the spaces that your students are living in, your spaces that your teachers are teaching in, do not hold back those spectacular programs. A lot of times you hear, we've got all those great ideas, but we just need more space. Well, here comes more space. Here comes that better organization so that the teaching and the experiments and the experience that the students can take is limitless. As you mentioned, we've been meeting a lot, bi-weekly meetings. It says bi-weekly. I mean, it's almost daily that we're having conversations with staff and reviewing a lot of things. And as I said, it's been a tremendous process to get to this stage tonight to be able to show you some of those concepts and ideas. We've walked through both buildings, both being Buchanan and Franklin, many, many times, have scanned that. We've had engineers and other consultants take a look at a few things. We know that geotechnical investigation, so we're drilling under the ground to make sure that we can build the addition where we're looking to build. And a lot of the conversations were around HVAC systems. That big white building over by the baseball field, that's actually a steam plant. This school, all of it, is heated with steam. Steam. Now, to be fair, we're actually renovating another school right now that heats their building with coal, so it could be a little tougher, but that is a very antiquated system. So as was noted, I mean, there's a lot of expense if you were just trying to take that system away and bring in anything that resembles a bit of a modern system. So by removing the Franklin wing, which we felt had the most challenges, that's half as much space that we have to put good money into to take away kind of an antiquated system. So the system that we're creating, and in that wing, you're looking at walls from the 50s. They didn't insulate buildings the way we do nowadays. So the envelope of that, we can put better heating in, but it's like wearing a spring jacket out in a snowstorm. We kind of made it better, but not really. And now you're using a lot of energy, and a lot of that could be wasted as well. So sustainability and making sure that we're energy efficient is certainly a big proponent as well. And as Dr. Brosman had mentioned, safety and security, there's a lot of things you'll see tonight that we can point out, and a lot of things that are kind of integrated that don't really jump out at you, but are also very important when it comes to school security. So one of the things, a lot of questions that we'll get is, great, well, when are we getting started? Well, we're still looking at a good year before you're going to start to see any bulldozers and shovels in the ground and things like that. The new addition will be placed on the baseball field. There's a whole nother season. They're mid-season right now. There's a whole nother season to come that the baseball team will be playing on that space. So what that means is we're still in the middle of designing all of those things. We're still getting a lot of feedback from teachers and administrators. We want to hear some feedback from the community tonight as we're designing this building together. So we're looking to do that through the rest of this year and into the beginning of next year. The bidding of that, this under Pennsylvania bidding laws, will go out to bid. And that'll happen around the springtime next year, so that we're awarding around this time next year with the hopes to start right after baseball season, start construction of the new building. The new building is big. It's going to take a while. It's about 2 years to build. And then we have a large building we have to take down. That can take another year. We also have a large building that we have to renovate. That can take another year. So for a little while, as you'll see coming up, there's going to be a high school and a half on the site. You'll have Franklin, you'll have Buchanan, and we'll have the new wing all here at the same time. Why that's a benefit is to make sure that the students at no time are being displaced. They're going to be safely housed in Franklin and Buchanan until the new wing is done. When that new wing is done, hey, great, let's move in. But there may be areas of Buchanan that still need to be worked on. We can make sure that students are not in that area renovate Buchanan fully, safely. When that's all done, great, everybody moves in there, Franklin comes down, and the project's complete. So the new building's about 2 years, but there could easily be about 2 more years of work involved in renovating Buchanan, as well as taking down Franklin and building some of the parking areas. So as we showed earlier, this is an example of the existing building. You can see kind of gray and sprawled out right above the first baseline there. That's the steam plant. You can see the very large baseball field that's there. We're looking at, this is a plan basically to show the entire property line all the way around the school. You can see here in red where the addition is going to be built. So this is going to be reality for a little while. We're going to have Franklin, Buchanan, and the big red building. We'll probably name it something better than Big Red Building. But as you can see, that's basically placed right on top of the baseball field. The steam plant stays because for a good 2 years, that steam plant's still going to be making steam and heating the existing facility. When the new facility is done, that new facility includes a new central plant. So all of our heating and cooling and much more energy efficient systems will be housed in that new red building. When the building is completed, and Franklin comes down, you can see a very large, actually 2 very large parking lots right along Bank Street. What's nice about that, and you heard earlier about how many different parking lots there were and kids coming across Kaufman, having to cross crowded streets. Well, now we have 2 very definable, very easy to find, very large and easy to monitor parking lots out in front. The parking lot to the right is going to be for, do we have that as that's the next one? There it is. Let's talk about traffic here. We'll go back a second. The parking lot to the right will be for staff and visitors. The parking lot to the left is for students. So students have a very large parking lot to what would be the front of the school, separate from the teachers, separate from the parent drop-off. Kids are great. I have an 18-year-old who's driving. That car, before she got it, didn't have nearly as many dents in it as it does now. So all that happens in the student parking lot, very large space. All of the parents and community members can park to the right of the school. And now we have a large amount of parking now for all of our athletic events, an event like tonight as well. Everybody can come to a front door, and we're going to show some animations there in a moment about how all that works. So jumping back to existing, we kind of have those blue lines. You know, we've got parking and people coming and going and things kind of spread out all over the place. The buses going along Buchanan. The idea here is to as I mentioned, have the student and staff parking, a blue line going all the way around that. So now again, a long area to drop students off. The buses still staying along Buchanan. In fact, there's an idea that they may turn now the other way because we're putting so much parking to that northern end of the site. Let's get the buses going south. Geographically, this building is kind of in the northeast corner of your district anyway. Most buses leave here and head south. So we're going to just turn the buses. The drop-off along Buchanan now is terrific. We'll just turn the buses the other way. They'll go south, cars go north. That's a little bit of a better way to handle the traffic that's on the site. The way the building is situated, one of the nice things about the Buchanan wing is it has a lot of classrooms. High schools of this size need a lot of classrooms. So we've already got them. We've already got the math and the social studies and the English classrooms. They're already there. They're in good shape. Again, we're going to fix them up a little bit, certainly with HVAC, but it's the specialty things like music, art, family consumer science, and certainly our STEM and technology classes that are kind of spread out and haphazardly kind of throughout the Franklin wing. So this gives us the ability to move music closer to the pack. This is a tremendous auditorium, so let's move all of that music program essentially right to the back of this. So they're right there, they can feed the stage. You know, all of that kind of performing arts aspects happen right here. Physical education, that on the left, that's the existing gym. We're taking down the very small gym over by the Franklin wing and building a much larger main gym. So the new gym, as you'll see in a minute, will be the main competition gym. And then, as I said, we have STEM, we have family consumer science, a new cafeteria and kitchen. But now we've got a school that's much more condensed. You can see just in the circulation a lot more things where we don't have dead-end corridors. When you've got 2,000 kids going down the hall, turning around and coming back on itself, And again, and especially in Franklin, those corridors are very skinny. That's where you run into students running into each other. So the ability now to have slightly wider corridors and consistently have circulation kind of in a many different ways around the building is certainly a large help. The new building will be 3 stories, where you'll actually enter at a mid-level. Sort of how you do that now. The front door at Franklin is actually at a mid-level of where Franklin is. So it's similar in that sense to what we're looking at here. So you'll be entering at essentially the 2nd floor, the mid-level now of the Franklin wing, and that's all flat. How many times have you had to go up a stair, to go down a stair, to go up a ramp, to go down a ramp when you're going from Franklin to Buchanan? So we're trying to create a flat new building, 3 floors, all flat. The mid-level aligns with the mid-level of Franklin. Now we do have to we are a little lower to go up to Franklin, and we're going to be a little higher on the 3rd floor to go down. But certainly the amount of ups and downs that a student may have to do throughout the day is greatly reduced by the new building. 2nd floor will have administrative support, a lot of, again, technology, visual arts, and core academics. And then up on the 3rd floor, all of that blue are some additional classrooms to make up, again, for some of the ones that are being taken away from Franklin. But this has really provided the district as well with a great ability to write their perfect curriculum. One of the first things we said was, yes, we're doing the hybrid scheme, but show us a curriculum like we're starting over. Let's find perfect, and then it's our challenge to be able to fit that into the building project that we're doing. So we're able to rework some of those. It'd really be great if we had one extra family consumer science lab. Okay, well, here it is. Now we have that space. So I'm going to turn this over to Ryan. He gets the fun part of the night to kind of show off the existing building and what certain areas look like. Buchanan, as we said, is staying here. Buchanan will look like this when it's done. The buses are going in a different direction. But everything behind this, everything on this side of the campus, that's what's new, and that's what we're excited to share with you tonight. Got it?
Thank you very much. So taking a cue actually from the existing Buchanan facade here along the existing bus drop-off, you can see we have 2 stories of masonry, and above that a different material. So you'll see a theme of that as we try to tie the new building together with the existing Buchanan. So an aerial view here showing from Kaufman Road to the south there. This is the existing building. If we switch over to what's proposed, this is that proposed new addition. So you can see a lot of facade along Kaufman Road, very long, reaching out towards the district administration building. So just going back and forth one more time, you can see we're building on that baseball field. And as we zoom in to what this could potentially look like, you can see we have 2 large spaces to the left and right of this southern entry. To the right is the cafeteria. To the left are those music spaces that Mike was mentioning, so band, orchestra. And then as we zoom into that additional entry, which could serve as a bus pickup spot, also as parent drop-off, we're trying to give the district flexibility in how the building is used. So right now there are 3 entrances to the building, so we're maintaining 3 ways for students to come and go as needed. So once again, one idea here for that southern entry, which will be visible from the athletic fields, from the stadium. So we'll give some presence off of Kaufman of the new addition. Flipping over to the north side, Stanley and Franklin wing here, again, the existing building. As we flip that over, again, one identifiable main entry with 2 large parking lots and parent drop-off, which starts to look something like this. So we have that opportunity to bring students, visitors, staff to one entry point. You can see to the right there, existing Buchanan. Everything to the left is that new addition. We're really trying to show school spirit with logos as well as identifiable front entrance. A little animation here showing us walking into the building, covered entry. Also have the ability for a visitor entrance for safety and security. So that's to the left through a secure vestibule and administration. And your first view into the main lobby You can see wide corridors, lots of opportunities, as Mike was saying, 3-story buildings. So there's a corridor below us, there's a corridor above us. So now all the students aren't coming to one specific spot to transition from Buchanan to the new addition. And to the left-hand side there, you'll see is the new competition gym. So as we look at what that could possibly look like, an upper track, indoor track, large competition area, but also 3 stations for physical education during the day, which is certainly important as well. So this is that new competition gym that was mentioned earlier as one idea for that space. As we move down to the first space, this is what we like to call Knight's Way. Off of Knight's Way, a few different spaces. One, a black box theater, so opportunity for theater to practice in a different space other than the PAC, which we know is very well used. And heading down towards Buchanan, straight ahead, and to the left would be the PAC down that corridor. We have the Learning Commons, and we also have other chorus rooms and band and orchestra down past there. Also off of Knight's Way would be one of the 2 large group instruction rooms, which currently exist in Franklin, but because we're taking that down, we need to recreate them. So one of them would be tiered, as seen here, and the other one would be a flat LGI space. Going back to that Learning Commons, this is paired with the library. So once again, another opportunity space for students to learn, do some independent learning opportunities before and after school. This space would also expand that function area outside of the PAC. So this would be an area that large gatherings could occur before, after performances, as well as before and after athletic events. Moving into the library, which is just off of the Commons, again, opportunity for collaborative learning, opportunity for books, as well as digital media, as well as classrooms that currently exist in the existing library. But this is right at the heart of your school. All of your students are going to be going back and forth past this space on the first floor, on the second floor, looking in to see the learning that's happening in the library. And then to the south of the building, we mentioned the cafeteria. This is one image of what the cafeteria could look like. Capacity enough to hold the amount of students, as well as provide a little bit more space than currently exists in the existing cafeteria. So that's a little brief preview of what the existing or the proposed school could look like. We're certainly excited to share with you additional images as this design develops. And from this point on, we're going to transition to some other projects that are in conjunction with this project, as well as additional.
Thank you, Mike and Ryan. And as they both shared, what you kept hearing is it could look like, it could look like. So right now we are in the schematic, kind of the design phase. We're at the very beginning. Things will continue to evolve as we, particularly at the end of this month, moving into next month, start to get really at the heart on the design side of things. But one of the things that you saw through the visuals was the extension of the new facility out over our baseball field. And so for obviously the next 2 years is what was shared, our baseball team will be able to play on that field. However, once construction potentially starts in the spring of 2026, our baseball team needs somewhere to go to play, and there is not a facility that we would be able to use unless we are going to a different university or whatnot, because other schools need their facility. So one of the things that we are looking at and was in a sense incorporated as part of the project and the dollar amount already is when you see here the baseball and softball fields. And so we would need to relocate the baseball field. And while that field is being built at the same time, we would also redo and upgrade our softball field so that both fields, in a sense, would be new for our students. At the same time that we're looking at that as part of the capital reserve plan and the fund of addressing our facilities, some things that you start to see in yellow around the stadium will be a phased potential approach of what we can do to begin addressing the needs in the stadium, as well as the surrounding aspects of the stadium with regards to parking, lighting, additional band practice, long-term as well. We have to have a whole plan, potentially tennis courts, et cetera. One of the pieces by putting the baseball field here, that's currently a grass field for our junior high field hockey. And so we would be looking to move that field here. And so this is all part of, again, initial planning, phasing that will evolve over time. But in order to do anything that we need to do, you heard Mike Kelly talk about the geotechnical testing. So we're currently in progress right now, and that is they're testing the ground and the water underneath the ground and the flow and the absorption of all that water to see how well a building would be suited on that land. And if it works and if we're able to proceed, we actually need to get moving on this very, very soon, like later this summer, early fall at the latest, because the fields need to be redesigned, and then the grass needs to grow. And the grass needs time over multiple seasons to really get rooted and be ready for our teams to play. And so those are things that we're working on and exploring now, in addition to continue planning for our high school. So wanting to share all of that and for you to be able to hear, in a sense, the why. Why now and why the high school compared to other buildings. So we have those two paths that we talked about. And I just want to remind you that if some of the things you're starting to see, again, the initial design ideas, if you have questions, please feel free to write them down or use the QR code. We'll be getting to that shortly. But what we were able to hopefully show you is the need and the why of this particular project. With that said, how do we pay for it? That's a large amount of dollars, and what does that look like? And so the potentially approximately $211 million, we need to work through a series of bonds and at the same time strategically, and the board working through building in millage, meaning aspects of a tax increase over time. And so what does that look like? So what you see is what we're currently working on for next year's budget, the 25-26 budget. But I actually want you to go back one to the current year we're in. So this time last year, as we were working on our budget, engaging in conversations with the board through the Finance Committee, Building and Grounds Committee, and the whole board, the potential adjusted tax increase could have been up to a 6.3%. To begin building in the millage, working with our financial advisors, we needed to build in 1.65% of a tax increase. We did that in this year's budget, and those dollars will be moved to the capital reserve plan, and those dollars year after year will continue to be moved to the capital reserve to be able to afford the debt in the future. What does that mean for next year's budget? We need to build in 1.81%, and then in subsequent years through 28-29, you see what we need to build in just for the additional debt that would need to be taken on for the high school. What does that mean in terms of the taxing authority that's left? And so what you see at the top is, from an Act 1 standpoint, that is the legal, in a sense, limit that the board can raise taxes to without, in a sense, going beyond that from a referendum standpoint. And so this year, our adjusted index is 4.8. We need at least 1.81, which means what's left for everything else in the budget is on the bottom row. And so as we're looking out, the Act 1 index we do not set. That is set for us and is set for all school districts. But with this project and being serious about thinking of the long-term needs of the district, we also then need to be serious about the long-term needs when you look at our finances with the budget. So it means over the next several years being very mindful of those expenditures. And when we start thinking about other programs or other wants or wishes, we have to be able to live within the means. And the question then that will need to be discussed over the next several months is, year after year, you see the Act 1 index potentially going down. Could that change from the state? Yes, but we don't have, in a sense, the crystal ball to know whether it will or won't. So we need to begin thinking and planning accordingly based on this. But to do this high school project, this is the minimum that is needed to be built in year after year for the project. As Mr. Maris said, after this is built in, those dollars will always be there that we need to set aside to address and pay for the debt and the bonds that we're taking on. So what does this mean in terms of the students? And when we think about the implementation of a potential construction and renovation project. When and where will the students be impacted by this? And so in the 25-26 school year, our current 8th, 9th, 10th, and 11th graders, there is no impact. Nothing will begin. This is still all behind the scenes planning and working through things. It would not be, in a sense, until the 26-27 school year when the construction will begin on the new extension. And that will impact, in a sense, our current 7th through 10th graders. It will mean that they may have to, in a sense, get around the campus differently because programmatically the school is still the same for them because the Buchanan and the Franklin building is still here. There will be, in a sense, the construction project occurring around them, but their actual school side will not be impacted. In the 27-28 school year, you're looking at our current 6th through 9th graders. Again, the construction of the new portion is still ongoing, which means the Buchanan and Franklin are still in play. It is not till the 28-29 school year, assuming everything goes as planned, and that would be our current 5th through 8th graders. Our current 5th through 8th graders would be the first group of students, in a sense, that would have access to the new portion of the new high school. And then in the end, in 29-30, when everything is completed, it's our current 4th through 7th graders. So our current 7th graders will be seniors that year, and our current 4th graders will be freshmen. It's that group of students that will have, in a sense, access to what we would call at that point the new Hempfield High School, which would be a combination of new and a fully renovated Buchanan site. So we wanted to be able to share this because that's always a big question, particularly for parents. What is the impact for my child or children that I know? And so really trying to map this out for you just to see what that would look like. But from a design standpoint, by adding on to Buchanan, it allows us to strategically have space still available. And when the new wing opens and Buchanan is being renovated, Franklin is still available to us. We're going to use as much of the new as we can and minimize the Franklin side, but it will still be needed. And so the construction and the renovation will be able to work around our students. So at this point, if you have cards and written down any questions, you can just kind of hold it up and some of our team members will kind of come around. And if you submitted them on the QR code, we have access to them already. So while they're going around collecting, they're also going to be looking at the questions at the same time and beginning to start to think about how we can make sure we get your questions and answers. I want to talk a little bit about how the community can continue to stay engaged and aware of what's progressing with the project. So first and foremost, on our website, while we are going to be launching a new website coming July 1, we are going to be putting information out on our district website to give not only this presentation, make it available, but also prior presentations from public board meetings, as well as any of the FAQ documents that we're going to be able to generate based on your questions. They will all be on our district website in the coming weeks. All of our board meetings and committee meetings are always open to the public. So we do invite you to, if you're not able to come in person, please feel free to join the live stream so that you can be aware. At our Building and Grounds Committee and Finance meetings, as well as our board meetings, that's where updates and discussions will continue to occur, and you can continue to stay informed. At the same time, we have the availability of our Roundtable newsletter. This comes out twice a year. It is mailed to all of our residents within the Hempfield attendance area. And so we'll be including information in that, including starting this spring, when our next roundtable comes out. There will be information and then access to be able to get to what you're seeing. On this presentation, while you saw some of the animated video components, when we post this live for you on our website, you will see QR codes in the bottom right corner. You can access the actual animation pieces. Just know that what you're seeing could change because we're still in that design phase. Every day at 5 o'clock, we push out an e-news to anyone who has signed up for the e-news via email. That contains district information as well as specific building information. So if you have a child in any of our schools, you can elect to get those e-newses on a daily basis. And when your child changes buildings, you can also then add on the new building that they're in. If you want to keep getting the building they were in's e-news, you can do that, or you can change your settings. We also will have a fall community forum. Part of the timeline that Mr. Kelly showed indicated that probably the October timeframe, we'll look to do another update to the community to provide you with a status report of where we are at this point. So with that, we are going to move to kind of the question answer portion. So if I could ask our board members who are in attendance tonight to come on up. We are going to raise the screen up, and they're going to sit up here at the tables. Also, Mike and Ryan, if you can join us up here. There are microphones on the table, so based on questions that we have received, some of them may be for our board members, some of them may be for the KCBA team, some of them may be for us on the administrative side, but we'll kind of juggle that. At the same time, Dr. Brossman, if you want to come up as well, maybe at the podium.
One of the questions we have here is, are lockers part of the new build, or are they a thing of the past?
Lockers. Do you want to take that one?
So right now, lockers are not part of the new design. We do have the existing lockers in the Buchanan wing. Some may stay, some may go. We've also been exploring the ideas. We visited other local high schools. Penn Manor has a really neat approach to lockers in that students that need a locker, they can get a code from the office. If they need a locker for a day, they can, or for a short period of time, they can do it that way. So there are lots of storage and locker options out there, but not currently planning on having a locker for every student every day.
There's some questions here about green energy and how that was considered in this project, i.e. solar, geothermal, et cetera, and maybe you can speak to a little bit of that in your plans.
Sure. That's a great question. As we talked about before, just starting with a new, modern, energy efficient and building code compliant building is like night and day between the building that we're starting with Franklin Skin. Again, there's not a lot of insulation in the exterior, and then heating and cooling it with steam. So just by the fact that we're building a building that meets modern building codes in today's century, that is an enormous step in the right direction towards sustainability. Regarding other factors to that, we're going above and beyond that building code to make sure that the system that's being implemented is even more efficient than what building code would require. We are looking at areas on the roof for potential green roofs. We're also looking at other areas on the roof for what we would call solar ready, meaning that the structure is ready for solar panels if they were elected to be placed, and the power that those panels would generate has an outlet essentially on the roof in which to receive all of that. So a lot of those things are being implemented into the design, not only to meet code, but exceed code, and allow the district for a lot of other additional sustainable options in the future.
Our Building and Grounds Committee members had the opportunity to meet with KCBA as well as ELA and More Engineering to learn more about some other sustainability options. Do any of the Building and Grounds Committee members who are part of that conversation want to share anything from that meeting? And talking about whether, the four-pipe versus the geothermal versus other options that were considered. Mrs. Brady?
Yeah, we looked at a variety of heating, cooling options, and while geothermal sounds like that would be a really nice, maybe more green energy approach, there were physical limitations to why that would not work on our site. The number of I don't know the proper term, the wells that need to be drilled for that. We don't have the capacity or the space to put all of those in. Those can lead to future sinkholes where we would be putting the new parking lots. And the upfront cost of that really is way out of line with where we are as far as our budget for this project.
There are a couple different questions here about just the costs of the different options here. How much of that is guaranteed? What's the, with construction costs expected to go up, tariffs, et cetera? How confident are we of those numbers, and where might there be some fluctuation or potential of going over any of those numbers?
Take that as well, I guess. Yeah, of course, everybody's watching the markets right now, and with current talks and things like that, things are getting more expensive. So it is something that our team and the construction management team are certainly looking at. There's contingencies in that budget to cover some of that. As I mentioned in the schedule, fortunately, we're about a year away from bidding. So what's happening right now is there's kind of a big spike because there's a lot of talk and really uncertainty in the markets. What we saw 8 years ago, essentially, when this happened, was there was a spike and then it all kind of leveled back out again. So we have a good year to monitor that and see that. We have several other projects of somewhat similar size that'll bid between now and then as well. So we'll be able to have a really good look at the market and make sure that we are staying on budget to meet the budget numbers that the board has accepted.
There are some additional questions about traffic flow here. Maybe we could talk about that a little bit. One says, since Kaufman's better suited to handle traffic, would it be better to have traffic away from Stanley and Bank Streets? What do we think the impact will be on those new parking spaces?
Sure. So you'll see we're at a very preliminary design phase for the site, so there will be continued conversation. So this comment's perfect. But in the diagrams that you'll see, a lot of those larger parking lots are actually being collected, we'll say, on the road between the DAO and the high school building. So with options for traffic to come down to Kaufman and not all flow onto Stanley or Bank Street. So we're well aware of potential issues, and we'll continue to work with ELA, our civil engineer, as well as the township throughout the process to mitigate traffic.
And also, there would need to be a traffic study as well to ensure that from a design standpoint, when you look at the number of cars based on the flow onto the roads, will that work or will that not work? And all that would still be part of the preliminary planning process. Yep.
So I just want to step in. Mike Kelly did a great job at the last Building and Grounds meeting talking about traffic flow. And even though we're doing a hybrid plan and a renovation, really the traffic flow they've been able to design is a similar setup that you would have if it was a brand new built high school out in the middle of a field somewhere. The separation of the buses, the student parking, the faculty and adult parking, and the drop-off lanes. So the design is really optimized in what they're designing in brand new high schools, even if you didn't have the constraints of an existing site. So did I capture that the way you said it there today, Mike? Okay.
There are some questions about the transition with the field space, especially where the new baseball field is going. There's a lot of field hockey, junior high teams that play on those fields. What would it look like as that baseball field is being built for those teams to be relocated during the project?
Want me to take?
That
Yep.
before, if you want to talk about that again.
So as we talked on the one slide that had all the different maps, the first thing that would happen is the grass field would be upgraded outside of, in front of LPC and LIC to ensure that that field is ready before any work is done then with the baseball field. So that would allow the field hockey and also in the evenings, youth soccer and lacrosse to be able to use those fields. Once the baseball field then starts on the construction side, that field would remain closed. Even once it's completed, it would still stay closed to ensure that the grass on that field would be able to have, in a sense, enough time to root and really develop for the field to be ready for the second season. In terms of the softball field, the work that would be done on the softball field primarily would be involved fencing, the batting cages, et cetera, but the heavy work beyond the dugouts and things is the infield. And basically taking that up, all new drainage and really working to re-establish that infield, but the grass outfield, in a sense, there would be minimal disruption on that. And so that would just need time to be completed so that that field would be able to be played on, because that grass has been there for a number of years now. So would there be anything else that you would add? Okay.
Also on the energy question, currently we're using steam. What will the new source of energy be? Or HVAC, sorry.
So the new source is again a hybrid of natural gas and electric. So the natural gas reduction of fossil fuels, we're using a lot less than what a building of 500,000 square feet would typically use. So it is a little bit of natural gas, but again, using that with very high efficiency boilers, understanding that you go back and see a lot of older schools, you'll see in a boiler room, one big giant, it looks like a locomotive in the boiler room. They heat it up as hot as it can get, and that's supposed to heat, but sometimes it has to pull back, but you've got this huge engine running in a boiler room that's taking up a lot of energy. So what we do now, and we're talking a little engineering, but we have what's called redundancy boilers. So there's a lot smaller boilers. They look like washing machines. They're much smaller, but there may be, say, a dozen of them or so. So on a really cold day, you might have 10 of them running, and on a day in the 60s, maybe there's 4 of them running. So that's a way to make sure that we're reducing our energy consumption. Yes, we are using a little bit of natural gas, but we're absolutely reducing the dependency of that, so it isn't just one big fire and then we turn things on and off. It's only used what needs to be used at the temperature and the conditions within the building. So again, just a modern way and modern use of certainly a more energy efficient systems.
Question on finances. Do we have any numbers on the approximate tax increase per household based on home value?
I know Mrs. Hall did a presentation, and I'm trying to just think off the top of my head. The average household was around 190-some thousand average, and the amount of tax increase would be in potential if it went to the Act 1 index was around $174. Yep. If we went to the max of 4.8%, the average would be about $174 on the average for just this coming year.
A question about during construction, what will student parking and transportation options look like during those transition years before we have that lined up?
Me? All right, we haven't worked out all those logistics yet, but when the shovels go in the ground, everything back here is going to get fenced off over to the baseball field. So essentially, yes, we will lose the PAC parking lot back here. That feeds into the Buchanan Gym as well. So we do have plenty of student parking to accommodate that in the stadium and the quad. So we'll lose some student parking here by the building. It's also going to affect how we access the Buchanan Gym during those years, because we're still going to be playing basketball in our Buchanan Gym. So we'll probably have to have more parking on this side of the building. People will probably have to come in through the Buchanan office and feed through the weight room or some way over to the Buchanan Gym. So yes, there will be, everything back this way is going to be fenced off and be a construction site. We'll lose access to that side of the building. So we will have to work through those logistics, but we'll get all that communicated to the students and community in time. We'll get maps on the website, go here, don't go here, arrows. We'll step everyone through it.
Yeah, I would just add again, this is obviously a major construction project. There will be a major amount of construction happening right behind us. The goal throughout, and we will share these plans as they get developed, as you mentioned, is to ensure the safety of our students and teachers while this is happening. At no point should students or teachers be anywhere near the construction. Even part of it's going to be up against the existing building. There's no reason, and at no time will a contractor be engaged with a student, or a student should be walking through the middle of something that's under construction. So we've done this a lot. It is messy. It'll be years of construction, but the focus is always on the safety and security of maintaining the safety and security of the students and teachers on site and minimizing any disruption. Certainly on the educational side, oftentimes when there's testing or something like that happening, contractors will limit the things that they can do during that time to eliminate noise. So it is a big endeavor, and the focus certainly is on the security and safety of everyone during that time.
Can you talk about how much green space might be lost along Kaufman and Bank Street with this proposal?
Yeah, so what we're discussing is it's arranged differently, and once again, those parking lots are not fully designed. So in those parking lot designs, there will be additional islands, additional tree coverage, things of that nature. While there will be some additional impervious surface throughout the campus, we're not looking to take all of the green space.
Yeah, I mean, the obvious thing that's different is the baseball field's not there anymore. But to Ryan's point, once everything is completed, there's still a lot of new green space that happens up closer to Stanley. There's some new green space that happens alongside the building. So it will be very different. But there's the focus, as we will need to be, would be on stormwater management. He mentioned trees and parking lots. That's a new requirement for something that's called a heat island effect to make sure your parking lots are shaded. So all of those things will meet best practices as well as township ordinances.
So there were a couple others that did not have to deal with the building project, and we'll work on getting some answers out on our website, etc. This was a fairly large slide deck here with but it was still a consolidated amount of information based on months of planning. I don't know if from the school board members up here if there was anything that they wanted to share that maybe hasn't been talked about this evening.
I mean, the only thing I would share is that this has been months and months of hard work with everyone's input. And I think we've come to a very good place in this decision, not just financially, but also for the future of Hempfield and the high school. It's clear that something needed to be done, and I think we've looked at this from all angles. We've been fiscally responsible to the best of our ability, and we'll continue to do that. And there is a lot more work to be done, but I would commend the administration, KCBA, and everyone involved in this project because they've done a phenomenal job of getting us to this place. And I think we're on the right track.
I also wanted to say that the hybrid idea, we talked about displacing students and stuff, but it's actually really cool because if you build a brand new high school, how would you do that logistically? Would you put kids in temporary classrooms? With the way we're doing this, they'll be able to go into the new building, and then we take down the Franklin. I think KCBA said a really good way as far as student inconvenience. I know we're going to have some parking lost here at the PAC, like we said, for sporting events, but overall, the way they set up the schedule, I think, is really good for parents and students and teachers because, you don't have to put students and teachers in temporary classrooms. You're going to do it logistically because you're taking the Franklin out later. You'll use the Franklin if you can, and then when the new building's up, you'll put them in and then eliminate the Franklin. I think logistically, KCBA came up with a really good way to handle this to minimize the impact on the students and families.
Sure.
I just want to thank the community for being here because this is the aspect that we need to support this, and it's going to affect all of us for many years. And so having your involvement and your support and your questions and your concerns brought is something that's invaluable to us too, because it's not just the administration, it's not just the architects, it's not just the board, it's not just the students, not just the teachers, it's all of us. And I think this is a really cool way for our community to come together.
And I'd like to add to that, again, thank everyone. If anyone didn't get all the questions answered, but if you'd like to reach out to any of us, all of our contact information is on the district website. We're not hard to get a hold of. Please feel free to reach out to any of the board members, any of the administrators, and we'll do the best we can to get you whatever information you need.
I was just going to say that this is going to impact the community. So, and also we want to get it right the first time. So please reach out, give suggestions, this has been months and months of work. This is a multi-year process. We've come a long way, and I think we're heading on the right track. So, we need everybody's input because we want to do it right the first time and maximize, the dollars that we're spending.
Please tell all your friends and neighbors. I mean, I'd like to see a lot more people out. This is a big project. Hopefully in the fall forum, we get 5 times as many people, because I know everybody's busy, but this is a big project. So talk to your friends, talk to your neighbors, come to board meetings, come to buildings and ground meetings. We want the public to be a big part of this.
I think that, is it on? I want to echo that. It is for the community. It's not only for the students that are here during the day. It's not only for the teachers, but to really build that that focal point, that gathering place that this whole community can be proud of, can utilize. As they said, we use this building round the clock practically all year round, and to get the building that we can all be really proud of and know that we're giving the best possible educational outcome to the students who, even if you don't have students in the building, they are our community, they are our leaders, they are the ones that are going to be taking care of all of us when we're old. So we want them to have the best possible education. I'll just go back to, I taught in this building for 10 years before I retired, and all of the things that they talked about, traffic flow and class sizes and stuff in the hallways and leaking ceilings and humidity, it's all real. And I can see that it's really needed. Nobody likes a tax increase, but we've worked so hard to minimize that as much as we can and get the best design for the dollars that are spent. And I feel really good about the direction of it.
It's on. Yep, Mrs. Johnson.
Also, if
You're on?
Yeah, Linda.
Yep, Mrs. Johnson's on.
if the finances were confusing and you didn't understand them, I know everybody thinks, oh, $210 million, that's a lot of money. If you don't understand some of the things we explained tonight, feel free to reach out. Go ahead. It's on now. I apologize. If you don't understand the finances, Mr. Bremersky explained some, I explained some. Feel free to reach out to our CFO, Karen Hall, to Mr. Bremersky. We didn't want to belittle the fact that it's a big capital project, but we think we can do it with minimal impact on the taxpayers. But if you don't understand what we explained tonight, if it was confusing, feel free to reach out, because we're not belittling it, saying it's not a lot of money. However, if we don't do something and the repairs get exorbitant and we have a roof that needs repaired, it can be, inconvenience to the students. It could be, really, really bad. So we think overall the money spent on the hybrid makes the most sense, and we'll do the best. But if you don't understand those finances, feel free to reach out to our administration.
You're good.
My turn now?
Yep.
Thank you for coming tonight. It is an important thing to know what's going on with our community. It affects all of us, especially if you own property and you're a taxpayer. I would also encourage you to come to the meetings. You'll get more detail. There was some more information that we got at our last building and ground meetings that we did not see tonight. So if you're at the meetings, you might get a little bit more information. The other thing is, a lot of the board members hang around afterwards, so if you want to have more like a one-on-one conversation where you can ask multiple questions instead of a forum like this is excellent to have this, but if you want more personal attention or interaction, come to those meetings. The buildings and grounds meeting are on Tuesday, which is Tuesday? The fourth Tuesday at 5 o'clock in the boardroom over in the admin building, and then the second Tuesday at 7 o'clock are the board meetings. So just encourage you to come to those or watch it on live stream for more updates and information.
I want to thank everyone for coming. And when this was first presented to me, I looked at it like this. Dr. Brosman, when he was up presenting, said it was 10 years after the last renovation when he started teaching. I have a daughter that's 44 years old. She came into this building as a 9th grader after the last set of renovations was done. So you can figure that was at least 30 years ago that they were completed. And as Dr. Brosman said, nothing has been done to this building in that time. So we do need to have it done. And again, thank everyone for coming tonight, and please come again and ask the questions.
So as you were sharing, there are more questions coming in, so I got 2 more for you. One, you know we have a quality preschool program with our FCS students right now. What's the impact to the preschool program throughout this project?
Sure. So an important part of the project is to maintain all of our educational program offerings. With the current design, the space allocated for our current preschool is one of the first spaces that needs attention to provide heat to the building and mechanical purposes. And so our pre-K program is going to be relocated during the construction. We're exploring options for that. But we will maintain the pre-K program during that time, but it will be in a slightly different location.
And the other question we have is, what kind of collaboration has happened with other local school districts? We know plenty of them have engaged in different building projects recently, so can you talk a little bit about that process?
Yeah, so from a local district standpoint, all of us have different contacts within different districts, so we are talking with our colleagues regularly, trying to learn what worked, what didn't work, visiting those buildings and exploring. One of the advantages of also working with Fidavia as our construction management firm, that they've also been connected to many projects across the state of Pennsylvania, probably one of the leading, if not the leader in construction management services across the state, particularly in the school setting. So we have access to many schools to learn from their experiences, and at the same time, we've also been able to tour many facilities and talk with the staff, talk with the board members, talk with the administrators, and hear at times even from community members what worked, what didn't work. And so when you look at the timeline of this project, and we showed at the beginning that chart when Mr. Kelly was talking. And so this schematic design phase, it's kind of looking to complete at the end of this month. That is, in a sense, such a tiny sliver of the entire project. So as we move into the next phase, we will continue to refine and gather a lot more feedback and information around what's working, what's not working. And so based on all of our contacts and their contacts and Fidavia's contacts, we have the ability to explore wide and far, and also then look at what's really needed for our community here at Hempfield, which is exciting.
I just want to add to that. I also sit on the IU13 board. I represent Hempfield, which has all the districts in Lancaster and Lebanon County. I have chatted recently with one of the board members from Penn Manor, because they went through a recent capital project, some of the ideas. And I continue to talk to other fellow board members about building projects, so we get some information that way also.
Some of our teachers in various departments have used in-service time recently to visit other local schools that have recently done new builds or renovations, like Donegal, Penn Manor, Anaheim Central, and some others, to get eyes on what they did and bring ideas back to us. So we are engaging with our neighbors in that way too.
So again, anything else from our board members? Thank you for giving your time tonight as well and being here. And to our community, thank you. Thank you for giving your time to come, to listen, and also to take what you hear. And as Mr. Mayor shared, please share it with your friends, your neighbors, community members. Continue to pass that information on. Encourage them to look at our website, to join our meetings, to gain more information. We'll be getting information out probably early part of back to the school year in terms of that October date for the next community forum. But it is, as I shared at the very beginning, such an exciting time for our district. As we look to this piece about building our future by strengthening our education, strengthening our facilities, and coming together as a community to say, what does our community need, what do our students need? And we can only do that as we look ahead from our vision standpoint by really learning together to really shape the future. So this is such an exciting time, and thank you for your time. We'll be here for the next, I think it's, where are we at, 8:40, for a while yet. So if you have questions that you didn't ask and you'd like to talk and engage with any of us, we are here. We can go out into the lobby if that's easier. But again, thank you for your time. And I'm sorry?
Sorry, I said the undersized lobby. Sorry.
Undersized, but enough for us today. So we're good. But again, thank you for your time. Really appreciate it. And have a great night, and we'll see you soon. Thank you very much.